So when we were speaking on the conjunctions and planetary alignments, obviously you compared it to the Bible a lot and talked about on a certain level, the Bible is astrological.
Yes.
So can you delve into that a bit more? Should we be looking for our signs from the Bible then of what's happening?
I mean, in answer to that question, no, because the Bible at the end of the day is not a book written for us as Negroid people, and these religions we're seeing in this day and time are not really spiritual practices that align with our being. But what we can say about these books like the Bible is that they came from older scriptures, and that's not a hidden fact. The Bible is largely a compilation of older scriptures, and there were even certain scriptures that didn't make it to the Bible, if that makes sense. So what there is in the Bible is elements of truth or tradition or older cultures which it pulls from. So, for instance, the story of Jesus and the crucifixion is a repeated story. You can find that throughout different religions and cultures. The story of Noah and the flood is a repeated story. You can find that throughout many scriptures and cultures. The story of Cain and Abel is a repeated story. Two brothers, who oppose each other. Yeah, exactly. It's a repeated story. So what essentially Bob was pointing out in the Lost Records of Time is that because a lot of these books within the Bible came from older scriptures, they have elements of truth in it, and a lot has to do with solar biology or astrology. So what he was actually explaining is that a lot of these characters which people think are literal are actually not. So as an example, the so-called Jesus of 2,000 years ago didn't exist, at least not in the form that is presented. The Jesus story is largely a compilation of different beings and characters throughout the Bible and older scriptures, if that makes sense. So what he explained was that 2,000 years ago, what happened was just a shift in age, if that makes sense. The age of Pisces going into the age of Aquarius, if that makes sense. And again, the signs are in the Bible for people to look at. Another example is Jacob and his 4 wives. Jacob has 4 wives, and that represented the 4 phases of the moon, which is why he had 2 full wives and 2 half wives, because you have the 2 full moons and 2 half moons, so to speak. So yeah, it's about knowing where these scriptures came from and where the elements of truth are. But ultimately, it's about returning back to our own culture, because that's where they all came from anyway, if that makes sense. So, I hope that helps shed a little bit of light, so to speak.
I think it does. Yeah, I think it does.